developing countries could save the equivalent of 350 large power plants, while also saving more than 70 billion annually for all consumers, including governments, on their electricity bills and unnecessary infrastructure costs. So it's a huge opportunity. Unite for Efficiency was launched in 2014 at the UN Secretary General's Climate Summit and combines the forces of the private and public sectors on the highest impact opportunities of much more efficient lighting, cooling appliances and electrical equipment. However, product registration systems are a key tool needed in achieving a successful market transformation and sustainable market transformation to eco-efficient products. Products within a region know no country boundaries, and therefore the introduction of tools and best practices on product registration are a powerful way towards a harmonization of effective systems within regions and for sharing not only market information and country experiences, but also for laboratory testing infrastructure and know-how, which can be costly to establish from scratch. United for Efficiency offers countries a wide range of tools and resources to help develop product registration systems, from technical guidelines to software prototypes. These international resources enable countries to develop their product registration frameworks without the need to start from scratch. In addition, we support complementary activities such as capacity building, so that countries can quickly carry out and sustain the needed measurements, the identification of the main product features to be included in the registration system, and other basic key resources needed to run the monitoring process properly. Without product registration systems, a market cannot be monitored effectively. In other words, policies such as minimum energy performance standards policies can be implemented in legislation, but if there is no market surveillance of the products imported and sold, these policies will not be effective on the ground. This will be very costly for governments and for regions. Today's workshop aims to provide key information on the need for and benefits of effective product registration systems. U4E will share the results on our work on the topic, which includes the development of a product registration system prototype. In addition, speakers from the African and Asian continents will share their experiences of using product registration systems at a country and regional level, and our sincere thanks for their kind participation today. Thank you for listening, and on behalf of the UN Environment Programme and United for Efficiency, I wish you an informative webinar. Please feel free to be in contact with us for more information. Back to you, Patrick. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul, for those opening remarks. With that, again, I'm Patrick Blake, also working on UNEP's United for Efficiency. Just a few pieces of housekeeping in the agenda before we start. So this webinar is being recorded, and we will share that with you afterwards as well. Please feel free to write any questions or comments in the message box on the right-hand side. We have the panel discussion later on, and we will do our best to address those. So just briefly to go through the agenda, we'll have an opening presentation for myself and my colleague Madeline, some of the activities, and a walkthrough of the product registration system that we have developed. And then to highlight some of the activities in ASEAN, and also in South Africa. We have two presentations, followed by a panel discussion on those as well, and also with our colleagues from East Africa. Then to close out a presentation on some of the resources and tools that we have from the U4E side. And finally, closing remarks for myself. So with that, let's proceed to the presentation. And as I mentioned, this will be an overview of United for Efficiency's product registration prototype and some of the benefits and reasons why to develop a product registration system. And I'll deliver this along with my colleague Madeline Edel, who is also working on United for Efficiency. So to start, how does a product registration system work? It starts first by testing products. Prior to that, a test does need to be performed. in a laboratory or a conformity assessment body and selects samples of the product and undertakes testing in accordance with the applicable standard. Then the applicant, which could be a manufacturer, importer, or distributor, applies an application to the product registration system and completes the application. Then an assessment is performed by the product manager, the program manager, or regulatory authority to review the applicant and to make sure that the necessary information are there and that it is compliant with the standard. And then finally, approval to the market, and that product then can be sold in the markets. The point here that we also wanted to make on the bottom is that possibilities for countries to work together. So either through a regional system or by sharing data amongst themselves, there's opportunities to collaborate between those. And we, of course, will hear more on those in subsequent presentations. But then also, of course, it is possible for countries to have a national product registration system, and there's plenty of examples of those as well. Next slide, please. And then why should I implement a product registration system? There's multiple reasons and benefits to product registration systems, in that it creates a database with product information. So visibility on the types of products that are in the market, and that can help in setting future MEPS levels and updating those over time as you see what products are in the markets. It helps to monitor which products are sold in the market to ensure compliance, of course, with the standards. So in that, in order to do compliance, you of course need a database of what products are compliant. It also places information on environmental impacts of the products at the fingertips of governments, and this can also help with sustainable public procurement. In other incentive mechanisms for higher efficient products. So you see what products are within the database and can create mechanisms for the higher performing products within that database. Then fosters economic development in reducing barriers for trade and by creating a more transparent market for consumers, that they are able to see what products are available in the markets. And that, of course, can be developed into different applications, and in order to communicate it in different manners to the consumer so that they are able to see that the product that they're purchasing, where it stands in comparison to other products as well. Next slide, please. Then briefly, a brief overview of the activities that we're doing. We have developed a prototype product registration system, and this is available for countries, and my colleague Madeline will go into more details on that. It's been developed based on best practices from other countries, and we've had a lot of input from the speakers and a lot of the experts that I see also participating in this webinar. Then in Southeast Asia, we are working on a regional product registration database that connects the countries in the region. And we'll hear more on that later on from our colleagues at the ASEAN Centre for Energy that we're collaborating on this topic with. And of course, we've focused our efforts on 3 products: refrigerators, lighting, air conditioners. Those are typically the starting products, but of course, possibilities to expand to other products as well. Next slide, please. Then very briefly, we have supported over the last year and a half different capacity building and outreach on this topic, including in Southeast Asia, Caribbean, and then also in some African and Asian countries. And that was really a starting point to encourage the development of product registration systems. There are also some tools that are available, and those we'll go into a bit more detail on in the last presentation from my colleague Sai. So with that, I will hand it over to my colleague Madeline, who will take us through the national U4E prototype software that's available. Over to you, Madeline. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Patrick. So as Patrick said, I would like to present you now the prototype U4E product registration system. And what that is, it's really a product registration system that can be actually applied by any country as a national product registration system. So it's really a software template that can be applied by countries. And that has, of course, a number of benefits. So it's, for example, it's based on best practice functionalities. It can be also personalized. Maybe for countries that are on the line, it's good to know that it's open source, so it's for free, that system, and that it's also designed to work with slow connections and data requests. And of course, we can, from U4E, we can guide you if you wish to implement that framework. But enough with theory. I would like to actually now show you the prototype system itself and walk with you through it. So if Sai, you could, my colleague, please stop screen sharing. Thank you very much. And I will then put on the prototype system. So I hope you can see it now from your computer. That is the prototype that we have developed. As Patrick has said, for the moment there are three products included. So there are air conditioners, refrigerators, and lighting included. But I will now take you into the system. I think, as we already said, it has been developed not only by us, but also with the help from IAC. So once you sign in to the system, it takes you to a dashboard, that gives you an overview actually of all of the data that is currently in the system. And just to say, so that is, as no country has implemented it yet at the moment, that is all of the data that you can see here is actually dummy data. So it's just any data there that is input there for demonstration purposes. But before I dive through that, let me just show you what the system contains in an overview manner. So it has that dashboard that is just, as I said, an overview of the data that is in there. Then there's a tab with products. This is where products are being registered in the system. Then there's a whole ability to do settings, and that is actually the part where governments can personalize the system according to what they need and what they want to have in the system. And then there's just a rather administrative part, meaning the users, an overview of the manufacturers and accounts. But let's dive into it. So here you see the overview of what is happening in the system currently. So you see here, for example, an overview of how many registrations there had been made. Again, that is all dummy data. Then we have included several graphs. So one graph shows, for example, how many product registrations there have been made. For example, here we have the majority of product registrations done on air conditioners, and about 11% of those are made by manufacturers and 23% by importers. Then there is the product registration status in an overview. So you have several status information that is, for example, an approved status, rejected, archived, revoked, according to just where the product registration stands itself. And then we have two more graphs down here where it's shown which manufacturers or which importers have registered to the system. and also how the payment is being made. So there's also the ability of doing the offline payment if online payments can be made. And then you just see here as an overview a couple of tables on pending actions and latest activities, but I won't go into detail of that now. But let's go through actually the most important, the most interesting part, that is the products tab. And this is actually where the products can be registered. So we have here, for the moment, as I explained, 3 products only. We will just do now the air conditioners example of taking you through a registration of an air conditioner in that prototype system. Just a side note, so I'm right now in the view of an administrator. We have several user accounts. There will be, of course, also the user account of a manufacturer, and the manufacturer, for example, cannot see the information that is in the dashboard, because a lot of that information is, of course, confidential for a manufacturer, and they might not want to share it. So the manufacturer would only see that part that I'm just doing, which is adding a product, which will have to be done by the manufacturer or by the importer of a country. So I'm now initiating the process. It first asks you, that's just really a standard, so to say, standard product registration process. But I will show you that because I think it becomes a lot clearer when going through it. So how that works is you started as a manufacturer, as an importer. It asks you for which country you're applying. Here we are just a sample country. We are just having Myanmar. We are applying for an air conditioner. And this is the legislation framework which we have right now, the U4E model regulation guidelines. That is a best practice MEPS regulation that we have in there. Then as a next step, it asks for the applicant details. We have a couple of just dummy data in there as well. There has to be the address input there, the contact details. And then when you continue, it takes you to the product details. So there it asks, for example, the model number. Again, I will just put anything in there right now because it's you have to fill in that data mandatory. So I have to fill in something. So it takes me to the next step. You have to fill in the manufacturer's name, country of origin. Let's put something else than Afghanistan, which is probably not a good idea right now. The date of product availability, and so on and so forth. There we have some details as well on the appliance, and for example, a couple of details here as well, where the ER is calculated automatically based on the rated input power that you can input here and the rated output capacity. Same for the refrigerant charge. And then up, it just takes you to the next part. And here you would input test details. And then on the next step, it just gives you an overview of the performance summary. And then it takes me to the before last step, that is the uploads of any files regarding any test reports that importers and manufacturers have to submit. And then after that, this is a step that I won't do now, but after that, it would just take you to any payment that the country wishes to do mandatory. So that is really an overview of the product registration process itself. Once that is submitted by a manufacturer or by an importer, it goes to the regulator, who then checks the registration and checks if it complies to the policies that are being implemented, and then takes it forward from there to either approve it, reject it, revoke it, or request, for example, as well, more information from the importer or from the manufacturer. But let me just quickly, I know time is running, but let me just quickly go through a couple of details here. So here in the channel settings part, this is the part, as I said, where you can personalize really the system. And that might be interesting if there are any people from, for example, the government on board, where you can see if you want to have in your system. So if you want to adapt that system, and if you want to personalize that system, you can, for example, define if you want to have a bulk upload, any MVNE actions that you would like to enable, disable, or define. You can see here adding product categories or deleting them. You can specify the test laboratories. You can specify the refrigerants that you want to have displayed to select it during the product registration process, blowing agents, and as well for the 3 products itself, where you can define the brand and the legislation of it. And that just as a very last thing. So there's also the overview of users. There are just a lot of dummy users now in there because we're currently testing the system. But here you see just a quick glance of user roles. So there will be 3 main user roles. That is the administrator, that has the most advanced, so to say, the most advanced rights, or all of the rights. Then there will be the program manager that is associated to the government, that can work with the registrations that are being submitted. And then there is the manufacturer who can then, as I just showed, do a product registration itself. And then here, this is just rather administrative information where you can see who is registered. But that is all from my side. Thank you for staying with me on board during that overview, and back to Patrick for introducing the next speaker.
Thanks so much, Madeline. It was great to see that and how it's come together so well. And for any of the participants that want to go through it in more detail, we'd be happy to set up a call with you for us to show that to you, the software, and for you to see all the different roles and fields that can be implemented in your country. So with that, thank you, Madeline, and we will go to our next presenter, which is Rio Jean-Peter Solotonga from the ASEAN Centre for Energy, ACE, who we've been working together closely, as we mentioned. And Rio will provide a presentation on ASEAN's regional product registration database. Rio is a research analyst at ACE and has a wide range of roles in accelerating the adoption of energy efficiency. He's also worked on the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, APAEC, from 2016 to 2025, as the plan which focuses on energy efficiency and conservation in industrial, residential, and commercial building. With that, I will hand it over to Rio for his presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Patrick, for your kind introductions. Good afternoon, dear participants, and good morning, and for you in another time zone. So, as mentioned by Patrick, I'd like to present to you the overview of the ASEAN product registration systems. So as you can see on the slide now, so here's probably my table of contents regarding the topic on ASEAN product registration systems. Next one, please. So first of all, to briefly introduce what we call ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Corporations. So we are now, ASEAN is now under the phase 2 of the APAEC with the timeline 21 to 2025. So under this new APAEC, we have a new team to accelerate the energy transitions, and also the new target for the RE and also energy efficiency. So for the energy efficiency, we have a new target on energy intensity reduction target of 32% by 2025 based on 2005 levels. Next one, please. Continued topic on the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, or APAEC. Actually, it defines the scope, the target, and also the visions of ASEAN on energy cooperations, including some energy efficiency, energy cooperation areas that ASEAN member states want to collaborate with. So there are 7 program areas under the APAEC 2021-2025, and for energy conservation, for energy efficiency and conservation, is one of the program area in order to reduce the energy intensity by 32% in 2025, based on 2005 level. Next one, please. Specifically, for program area energy efficiency and conservation under the APAEC 2025, ASEAN actually has been able to identify some specific measures, energy efficiency measures, or outcome-based strategies in order to achieve the target of energy intensity reduction at 32% by 2025. There are main policy measures on energy efficiency that ASEAN is looking at. They are harmonized E standard, private sectors, and sustainable building, industry sectors, including transport sectors as well. So for the product registration system, actually this is this is under the purview of harmonized E standard, where we are going to transform the market on appliances in the ASEAN market regions through some corporations and energy efficiency measures. Next one, please. So under the target of energy efficiency in the APAEC 2025, so here the status where we at now, and then the projections, where are we going to achieve the energy intensity target by 2040. So for your information, under the period of until 2005-2018, ASEAN has attained a 21% energy intensity level reductions. So this is actually suppressing commitment of ASEAN to achieve reduction of energy intensity of 20% set for 2020. Next one, please. Overall, this is the key basic directions of energy efficiency programs area under the APAEC 2025. So if you can see point number 4, this is actually the program where ACE and also United for Energy Efficiency is collaborating now, actually supporting the basic direction of the energy efficiency under the APAEC to support product registration system for policy making and facilitate exchange of information on efficient appliances in ASEAN region. Next one, please. So specifically go to the ASEAN product registration system topic. So as I mentioned, ASEAN or ASEAN Centre for Energy is now collaborating with UNEP program, or United for Energy Efficiency, U4E, to develop harmonized product registration system to support the harmonization initiative in ASEAN region. Next one, please. So this is the program methodology that ACE and U4E and UNEP is working now to develop the product registration system in ASEAN. So there are actually 3 main components. The first one is this regional assessment and framework. So under this project, there is a phase where this project identify and also assess what actually the applicable regional database model selection will be applied, and also some technical element exist among ASEAN member states. And the second phase, after the regional assessment framework is completed, we are looking at software development in collaboration with software developer in order to develop the system based on the model selected model and also technical elements that have been identified. And then testing the system with ASEAN member state. So the last one is the approval. So after the testing of beta versions, then this project is planning to launch, to have a launching of this system, and also we would like to see the implementations of the system after this project completed. Yeah, next one, please. Specifically in terms of harmonizations on AC, actually ASEAN in 2016 has been committed and also have an established ASEAN regional roadmap for harmonization on AC. So if you can see on the slide, actually there are 7 components under the regional roadmap for AC, and this project, the collaboration between the UNEP and also ACE, actually supporting the six component on the reporting sides, where ASEAN actually is looking at development of regional product database by 2020. Next one, please. A bit of a review of what actually standard harmonization that ASEAN is looking on energy efficiency. So if you can see, this is the block of the harmonizations of ASEAN's energy efficiency harmonizations. Actually, ASEAN Harmonized Electric and Electronic Equipment Regulatory Regime, or shortly we call EACREEE, was developed what we call by the Joint Sectoral Committee on Electrical and Electronic Equipment Mutual Recognition Agreement, GSCEMRA in ASEAN. So this regime, harmonized regime system, actually want to leverage the EAMRA, the existing EAMRA in ASEAN, to build mutual acceptance and test report and certifications on electronic and electrical energy efficiency that include a component of safety, EM's electronic magnetic compatibility, and also environment standard. And then we are now working to include the energy efficiency standard on the existing EAMRA system. Next one, please. From this diagram, actually, we can see what actually the MRA, the Mutual Recognition Agreement, or MRA, that ASEAN is looking at. Actually, this, as I mentioned, we want. I mean, this is a system where ASEAN member state able to acknowledge and recognize a testing laboratory result from among ASEAN member states, and also to encourage the participation of certification bodies to ensure the conformity assessment of the testing laboratories. Next one, please. So from our side perspective, what actually the PRS system contribution to the standard leveling harmonization efforts in ASEAN. Actually, as mentioned, this PR system is very beneficial for ASEAN in order to support the existing harmonization effort, so especially for the monitoring and verification system, and also to support to support the effort on the free trade on efficient appliances in the ASEAN market. Next one, please. Under the program collaboration program between UNEP and ACE, actually this program actually created a framework, supported the framework, the establishment of the framework of ASEAN PR system. So this is actually the selected model, applicable in ASEAN based on the assessment of this program. So because there is a various development among 10 ASEAN member states in terms of the PR system, so the framework actually is divided into the ASEAN member states that have already the existing PRAs in place, and also the framework for other ASEAN member states that has a planning to develop ASEAN PRA system in the future. Next one, please. This is just an overview of the overall approach of the database system under the PRA system of ASEAN. So how the regional, the national, the existing national system able to transfer the data via the API connections to the regional database system. And so we also looking at the benefits if then these frameworks, this proposed approach or system really able to be applied in the future in ASEAN. So there are some the benefits that we are that might be can be achieved by ASEAN. I mean, like visibility of products, allowed for sales in other countries, notification of new products, notification of products revoked in other countries, facilitates application of mutual recognition agreement, and ultimately this information helps the region to adjust for beneficial for policymakers for improve their policy in terms of efficient product in the future. Next one, please. This is just yeah.
It's Patrick. If you wouldn't mind wrapping up in the next minute or so.
Okay.
That'd be great. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I think just want to. I think this just left two more slides. Could you please next one, please? Yeah. Just want to highlight what actually the achievements of this program. So we actually able to consult with ASEAN member state in order to agree and get approval on the framework and also the action plan in order we can bring forward the regional energy ASEAN database system on efficient products. Next one, please. So for the future development, actually the software is still under less testing phase. So hopefully we can really able to complete all the testing phase, and then we are looking forward to see the completion of the the implementation of this program of the software in the ASEAN in the near future. Next one, please. Yeah, this is just the study conducted by ACE on energy efficiency. Next one, please. All right, so that's all my presentation. Apologize for the time constraint. I'm very happy to discuss with you furthermore during the Q&A session. Thank you, Patrick. Back to you, Patrick. Thank you all. Back to you, Patrick.
Thank you so much, Rio. It was very helpful to see the regional approach that we're working together on in ASEAN, and of course an example for other regions as well on how they could set up a regional database for collaboration amongst groups of countries. So with that, we'll go to our next presenter, Theo Carreri from South Africa, representing the South African National Energy Development Institute, SANEDI. And Theo has a range of experience on energy efficiency in lighting and appliances, and he will provide a presentation on South Africa's national product registration system for appliances, and I'm sure that will provide a lot of inspiration for the participants on an approach to be followed as well. Over to you, Theo, for your presentation.
Right. Thank you, Patrick, and thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to present. Please, the website details for the program is there. It's quite useful. We've done a lot of research. All our reports are on the website, so I'd encourage you, if you're looking for something or need some ideas or experiences from other places, to go into the reports section of that website. Okay, so South Africa has got a mandatory standards and labeling program. These are the appliances that are are regulated with maps and labels, and you can see the approximate annual sales. So it's a sizable market, of course not as big as some of the other places in the world like the US or the EU, but it is the biggest market in Southern Africa. The program is supported by the Energy Efficiency Strategy, the 2005, and before that the Energy White Paper. GEF funding came through in 2010 or 2011, and that allowed for program activities, and the legislation came in 2015 for the appliances I showed you, and for electric water heaters the year after that. So how do we regulate? We've got our national regulator for compulsory specifications. This is an agency that looks at safety, health, and the environment, and does so with the same lens. So it won't prioritize the one over the other. So that's quite useful, because often, people might prioritize the one over the other. So how do they regulate? They've got a third market conformity approach. Every product, before it gets allowed to be on the market, must produce an accredited independent test certificate. This is processed by the regulator. If they're satisfied, they'll issue you with an LOA, a letter of authority to sell. They do one for energy efficiency and one for health and safety, and you need to have both to be on the market. And then after that, they do MV&E in the market, and annually, companies must pay a levy for each product. So let's just say it's $1 per washing machine, just to pick a number. And if you sell 30,000 units that year, you'll have to give them $30,000 for their services. And that's how the regulator remains sustainable. So this was very useful for South Africa when we started our standards and labeling, because typically the approach is to get an independent agency to do energy and one for health and safety. But we were able to hit the ground running, as it were. But that didn't come without its problem. The staff were very focused on health and safety, didn't understand energy, and certainly the IT system wasn't fit for purpose. It was old and health and safety centric, and to make changes to the system because of its age was more trouble than it was worth. So as a result, we started having long processing times for applications. As you can see, it's much lower now, and I'll get to that in a minute. But at one point, it was taking a long time. It was a combination of online and paper, manual. Things get lost. People write stuff. A 0 is a O, and all that sort of thing. You can't read people's writing. There wasn't a centralized database, poor reporting, and this doesn't encourage effective market surveillance. So it got to the point where industry approached the minister and parliament to intervene, and there was a lot of pressure on that. So was a PRS the answer? Certainly it was, and we've got an international expert from Australia, Robert Foster, who I believe is on the webinar today, and he did a fantastic job in developing the technical specs. They were really useful. We went out to market. We've got a system developer, all open source software, and we undertook staff and industry training. And that's the site. Of course, it's you can go and have a look at it, but you won't get past the first page. You'd have to register. But that's sort of what it looks like. And it was a game changer, because you can read through that, so I won't go through it. But what it effectively did was shift the responsibility to the applicant. So under the old system, we would get comments like, what's wrong with your inspectors? Don't they understand? Can't they do it? They're so slow, they're this, they're that. But as soon as we had the system and now they inputting, suddenly they have to interpret the test report. Suddenly they have to make sure they don't make input errors. And there's some basic logic in the system. So if it's measuring in centimeters and you inputting millimeters, it'll tell you, well, a refrigerator is not really going to be that size. It's not possible. So it removes some basic errors, which makes the whole process faster. And it also has automated responses. So, if someone doesn't get around to emailing you under the old system, you could wait a week before you get an update, and it creates all sorts of anxiety. So the the registration database went live in May. The LOA application had come down from 120 days. It was 70 when we went live. It's now down to 15 days. It's been such a success that the regulator wants a similar system for their health and safety. The extent to which this will happen, I don't know, but certainly these are the signals we're getting. And you know, the shoe was on the other foot now, and initially industry came back quite hard at us about the system and all of this sort of thing. But once they got used to it and they saw the times drop, the processing times drop, they were fully on board. And now they're all behind it. It just takes a little bit of encouragement. And once you see benefits, it all goes well. So we still have to do, we're still processing. There needs to be a little bit more looking at the data, collecting the data, putting it together, seeing what's happening, and using it for risk-based compliance. That's important. We don't have big budgets here to do just random testing and excessive testing or extensive testing. We also want to give public access to the database through a QR code. And also to allow inspectors to go into a store and scan the code and say, is this what the application says versus the label? It'll simplify things, because at the moment they have to go into a store, write it all down, go back and check. Things get lost, things take time. The refrigerator gets sold. It's an old model. It's not ideal. It's not very efficient. So this is we've done some work on revising our label. The one on the left is the official label at the moment. The one on the right is what we're thinking about. We take guidance, but we've done our own focus groups, to going to pictograms, it's sort of going in the same direction as the EU label. We want to rescale, drop all the A pluses, insert the QR code, tell people what refrigerant they've got, so they can make a call on those sort of decisions when they're purchasing an appliance. So what are the success factors? It's crucial that ministries are up to date with technology, and it can happen that ministries aren't. This is the way they do things. There's bureaucracy, things take time. And the regulatory staff must be convinced of the benefits. If they start thinking that an automated process is going to cost jobs, you're going to hit a roadblock. I promise you, you will hit a roadblock, and you won't know why things aren't moving, but it possibly is that. Additionally, the IT department, because now you're introducing a new system into their world, they must be on board, because that can also create problems. And to help change, in addition to the system, the PRS, you need to re-engineer your business processes. And that's an important step that should be done simultaneously so people buy in. And of course, the industry must be dealt with fairly, but firmly, because, the industry can also come up with reasons to delay progress, and they have their own motives. So they have to be dealt with firmly. So with that, I thank you. I probably should also just say that I'm representing, as Patrick said, the South African National Energy Agency, and they're an agency of the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, and they currently implementing the SNL program in South Africa. And with that, thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Theo. It was very helpful to see how the product registration has streamlined things and made the processes quicker and more efficient. So I'm sure that'll be helpful for some of the other participants as well. So with that, we'll go to a panel discussion with both the presenters, and I will hand it over to Madeline, my colleague, who will be moderating that. Thanks, Madeline.
Thank you very much. So as Patrick said, we had now a panel discussion planned. We had it initially planned for, I think, 25 minutes. As time is running, I would propose let's do it for about 15 to 20 minutes now. And for that purpose, I would like to re-invite the speakers in, seeing Theo already there, but please Rio join as well, and please Michael join as well. So we have We have in that panel, we have a new speaker joining us now. That is Michael Kieser. Welcome, Michael. Michael, he's working for the East African Centre of Excellence for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, short EACREEE. And in this current role, he actually involves designing and implementing programs in the areas of policy formulation, capacity building, and investment promotions on renewable energy and energy efficiency. So welcome everybody to this panel, and welcome as well, Michael. As Michael is new to this panel, I would like to start off actually by questioning you. So I've prepared a couple of questions here that I would like to just ask the speakers, but please, all participants, feel free to write your questions in the chat box. I saw we had earlier comment that we share the PowerPoint, which we can certainly do, but please feel free during these discussions to write your additional questions in the chat. So Michael, EACREEE is working together currently with SACREE and with our initiative on developing regional maps for air conditioners and refrigerators. Could you shortly explain the project, and could you also explain how a product registration system could actually support the market transformation to energy efficient products in that context?
Thank you, Madeleine, and thanks to all the other colleagues and the ones who have spoken before. Yes, as you mentioned, EACREEE is collaborating with the U4E and SACREE in this process. But this collaboration started way back in 2018 under the Project Rwanda Cooling Initiative, where we developed the national maps and the cooling strategy for Rwanda. And following the success of that project, we started on a new project which was named Building High-Level Support and National Capacities to Enhance Climate and Ozone Protection through Cooling Efficiency. Under that project, of course, we started the development of the minimum energy performance standards for cooling appliances, refrigerators and air conditioning, and as well as the implementation and mechanism, the toolkits that are required for its implementation. That is through enforcement and incentive mechanisms that are required. Now, this project, as you've rightfully mentioned, is being, of course, steered by U4E and implemented in collaboration with the EACREEE and the ASEAN Centre for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, ACREEE. And I'm happy to see colleagues from SACREE around here. Now, so we are extending this project currently to include dissemination of the product registration system, which all of you have spoken about, and we believe that this would be a good initiative to help achieve our goal. In addition to the project, allow me to mention that EACREEE and SACREE are collaborating with UNIDO, the project steered by UNIDO, that is the project called Energy Efficient Lighting and Appliances for Eastern and Southern Africa, which aims to create market and institutional conditions to enable transformation and stimulate the market for energy efficiency products, focusing on light and of course other appliances. So it's good to also highlight that all these require, of course, when we develop the maps, we develop the product registration system. Now, why is it important? That was the second part of your question. Yes, as already explained by you and other speakers, one of the most effective mechanisms for enforcing standards is the product registration system. It's crucial. It's a crucial enabler for the market monitoring. Once you have the maps in place, monitoring needs to happen, and we need to check what's really happening in the market. Product registration system enables the authorities to access individual product details, supporting market surveillance, and can help consumers find products fitting their needs and actually ascertain product information. Theo mentioned about the QR code, or the barcode can also be used in some, the QR code, if you register the product and again have the QR registration with the website that explain more, because on the label we cannot put a lot of information on the label. But if it is coded and linked to a particular website, the consumer can confirm that this is not a duplicate product, but it's actually the real product which has been registered. Yes, it is a trending thing. Product registration is a trending undertaking. Many important economies such as Australia, Canada, China, Brazil, India, US, and European countries are embarking on this, have already embarked on this. And therefore, the EAC region cannot be left behind. We should go with the rest of the world. So that's why we welcome this initiative from you to support us in developing and implementing product registration system.
Thank you very much, Michael. It's very interesting to hear what is currently planned. Maybe just one follow-up question, and it would be good if you could maybe limit your answers to 2 minutes to give the other speakers as well a possibility of speaking. But we've heard that there are several types of product registration systems that can be implemented. There are regional systems that is, for example, in the Pacific region implemented. Then there are national systems like the one in South Africa. And then there are systems that are kind of regional cooperation systems. That is the one which is currently being implemented in the ASEAN region. Is there one another model that you see is more feasible for the East African region?
Well, the national systems can be in place, but in the EAC region, personally, I would advocate for a regional system. Why? Because the East African community is a bloc undergoing integration process based on 4 pillars. One of the pillars is the custom union, the second on the common markets, which means that we have free movements of goods and services across the 6 countries. And of course, the other one, the monetary union and political federation, which is still a long way to come. But given that we have free movement of goods and services in the region, so the product registration system would be very crucial for effective and objective implementation of of standards, because sometimes we have issues arising between the countries about goods and services. So when I talk about goods in particular, if we have a product registration system which is at regional level, it can help to avoid such issues.
Thank you very much, Michael. That was very insightful. So my next question is actually to Rio. So Rio, we had an overview of the system of the regional database that we're currently developing together for the ASEAN region. And one part of how the database works is that actually the data from the countries that have actually a product registration system in place, they will transfer the data through something that is called an API, an application programming interface, that will be installed in the national system. Could you explain how those IPAs work, and why is it actually that important to have it there? Why is not the data just transferred manually from the national systems to the regional systems?
Thank you, Madeline, for the question. Actually, the regional database system actually follow the master product registration system developed under the collaborating program between ASEAN and UNEP. As I mentioned in my previous presentation, the purpose of the regional database system actually support the centralized repository with certain information of products registered in the ASEAN countries. I think this is very useful because ASEAN actually has been moving towards what we call ASEAN Economic Community. So the regional database system actually is something that we are really want to push forward in the ASEAN region, not just to support the efficient appliances in the market, but also the end goal is to support the big target of the ASEAN Economic Community in ASEAN. So I think the framework, as I mentioned, we are looking the existing PR system in the ASEAN member state can be connected into the regional database system by using automatic API system. So actually, under the framework, we identify the communication interface or API to be embedded in the regional database system. This is to allow automatic data transfer exchange between the regional channel and also regional database system in the future. As I mentioned, this is to support the support and also to really realize the benefits that the PR system able to contribute, especially to really ease the monitoring and verification system, also market surveillance on efficient standard enabling appliances among ASEAN member states. So I think yeah, that's it. This is the benefits and also the API system under the product.
Thank you very much, Rio. And my next question goes to Theo. So we had a very great overview, actually, and a very practical overview of why the system was important to implement at that point and what are the benefits of that system. But I wanted to actually question you on a point of confidentiality, because that's something that we've often heard from manufacturers and from other countries actually currently developing a product registration system. There's actually one consensus of countries who are considering to implement that product registration system is that manufacturers, they do not want to share the data. How do you deal in the Southern African system with those types of requests, and how do you deal with confidentiality issues?
Yeah, thank you, Madeleine. Firstly, I think that's nonsense. You know, if you're not prepared to share information, that probably is suggesting you've got something to hide. The information on the project, on the registration database is not sensitive. I can't see what the sensitivities are about. If a brand has a 20% share, that's all you want, more or less. If it's 18 or 22, you don't mind. You just want to understand. You want to get a sense of the energy efficiency classes to understand if your policy is going in the right direction. Because if you make wrong policy decisions, the people participating in the system have got the most to lose. And you'll get the data anyway in the end. So I don't really buy into that too much. It's more, I see it as a delaying tactic more than anything else.
Thank you. That was a very clear statement, and good to hear your insights on that. Maybe just one last question to you, and I guess you've touched upon that already a bit. So when the maps, when they're implemented, but actually there is no real market monitoring and enforcement happening on the ground, what it often causes is actually frustration by the manufacturers who respect the maps, but who are not, so to say, receiving any benefits. How do you see that product registration systems contribute to get a market to actually comply with the policies?
Yeah, so that's important and a massive problem in South Africa. So when you submit your application, you have to pay some money. And as I said, you have to pay the annual levies. So if people are paying and then they're seeing illegal products in the market, that is frustrating. It also is not helpful towards national policy objectives. So an MV&E system is crucial. Using the database to collect information, to do risk-based monitoring is an important mechanism and a tool to assist regulators. So I can't stress that strongly enough. And once you get on top of it, there's a stronger appetite for compliance. If you know you're going to get away with it, you are unlikely to comply. You may be more willing to take chances or whatever. But if you see the regulator is there, you're more likely to conform. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Theo. And we actually just heard in the chat box as well that the West African region, so ECOWAS, they're currently developing a regional system as well. So that is very good to hear. With that, I would like to end the panel discussion already. Thank you very much for all of the speakers, and I would like to hand it over to my colleague Sai, who is going to present on if you're not interested in implementing a product registration system, what is actually available. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madeline. That was indeed a very insightful panel discussion. And in the interest of time, I'll try to keep myself very brief. Hello, everyone. I'm Sai, and I'll be explaining about various tools that are available at your disposal for implementing the PRS. Moving on. Now I believe most of the participants have got a pretty good idea of what product registration system is, and these are the few functionalities and the other features. As you all know, this is a modular design that helps independent modification of modules, allowing better debugging process time as well as better reusability. Furthermore, we can define different product categories based on different appliances, and we have well-defined user roles for administrators, for manufacturers, and as well as for the other government stakeholders. Furthermore, we also have different features like the quick response compatibility, and also there is overall the software allows a transparent flow of events starting from the registration to the end of approval. Moving on to the next slide. So again, summarizing, so we have two types of product registration systems that could be implemented at regional level as well as the national level. Of course, the inherent modular design allows each country or region to choose their own very specific parameters. For instance, in the case of air conditioning, we can define the CO value, SEER value, or the refrigerant to be deployed. Similarly, we have most of these software is available in the open source, as well as the operating systems like Microsoft, Windows, Linux, etc. all allow easy coding if properly trained. Moving on to the next slide. So these are the few tools and guides at your disposal for all those who are interested to implement a PRS in your country or in your region. So we have developed 4 guidance notes, each of which provides details right from the foundational requirements to the implementation of the PRS. These are the 4, and these can be accessed at the web link, which is at the bottom. All these PPTs will also be shared. So this is highly recommended for all the countries that wish to implement the PRS right from the scratch. So it also entails details about the administrative and the regulatory framework, along with the IT infrastructure as well as the testing standards. The second one is the outline. So it shows the prototype, which is built on 6 important verticals. So it asks about the applicant details, the product details, the test details, the performance claims, the file uploads, and finally the declaration of fees. The last one, the specification document, the PRS specification document, is a very comprehensive one, which provides in detail key functions about the user interfaces and user details, along with their various data points or the database management, etc. And so I wouldn't confuse everyone. These are just 4 simple next steps, just the 4 R's. First, I would strongly encourage everyone to kindly refer to all the important personnel in the government or in the IT ministry, etc. Then we ask them to review, because we understand each country and each region has its own requirements. We would like to review all those 3 documents which we would be sharing and try to customize or tailor make it to your requirements. Then you could revert back to us. You could revert to us expressing your interest, and then we will be happy to reconnect to help you build your own PRS system. So that's the end of my presentation, and I will hand it over back to Patrick.
Thank you so much, Sai, for that overview of the tools and resources that are available for the participants, and also to Madeline and colleagues for the previous panel discussion as well. I think it was very helpful. Just a few very brief closing remarks. It's very helpful to hear from the different speakers on their experiences in developing product registration systems, the past ones, which perhaps were a bit more difficult to use with paper, but now how those can be more streamlined and the benefits that those can provide. I think through this webinar, we really hope that it showed the role that product registration systems can provide in the broader market transformation projects for energy efficient lighting, appliances, and equipment, how it is very impactful to have a system with compliant products, and that really supports other parts of a market transformation project, including minimum energy performance standards, labeling, sustainable public procurement. All that can be supported if there is a system in place to register products, and then it's much more visible the types of products that are in the market. So again, thank you to our speakers, including Rio from the ASEAN Centre for Energy, Theo from South Africa, and Michael from East Africa's EACREEE for their remarks. It was very helpful to hear from each of them, and the national approaches and also the regional approaches, and how they are at different stages of either developing those or implementing those. Further, I would like to encourage the participants to stay in touch with any questions or interest on product registration systems. We would be happy to support you together with our partners on developing that, and we can, as I mentioned earlier, go into more details on the software that was presented by Madeline. So please do follow up with us on any interest or questions that you might have. And then finally, thanks as well to my UNEP U4E colleagues, particularly Madeline and Sai, for all the help that they've had in putting this webinar together, and also the broader work on product registration systems. So with that, thanks again for all for joining, and please do stay in touch. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.